Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Ascension podcast. It's Heidi here, and I'm super excited about today's episode. We have Tamika Ellsworth in the house, and we're going to do a part two of Faith is the Currency of Heaven. Guys, we have had a couple really great episodes. Make sure you go back and check our episodes. Our YouTube channel is Saints and Soldiers. It's the Ascension podcast. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe. It really helps us interact with us on the comment section. It helps us with ideas and giving us topics. That would be great. We would love to hear from you guys. So on today's episode, like I said, we're going to have Tamika. I'm about to invite her in now. Hey, Tamika.
Hello, Ascension Podcast.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good, Heidi. How are you doing today?
I'm great. So glad to have you on. I'm excited about this conversation.
Here.
So I was just letting everybody know we're doing a part two of Faith is the Currency of Heaven. And this is such a good conversation, man. So much to talk about.
Yeah.
And so I love your story. I love what you do. And you really bring this topic home. So tell me, what, from your perspective, what does it mean when I say faith is the currency of heaven?
You know, I think for a long time, I thought, well, first and foremost, I'm happy to be here. Like, honestly, what you guys are doing on the podcast and just the nuggets that you guys are dropping is amazing. So keep up the work, and I'm really honored to be here and be a part of this. So just want to make sure I get that shout out real quick.
Cool. Yeah, we're having a good time over here.
But you know, for the longest time, not really understanding, faith, and, the world gives a whole example of what that looks like. Right. And so coming from a worldly example, but coming into God's kingdom and actually seeing it walked out, like, it gave me a whole new perspective. It's not just believing that what God can do, because we can obviously, I believe that, but God can do it. But it takes it a step further than that, when it's a knowing in God's ability that he can perform what he says, because he's God. He could do anything. Do you believe that? Okay. Right. Do you believe it? But do you believe and trust in his ability to actually bring it forth and do it, because you can't do it in yourself? So at least for me, being able to see that in action, it just so happened to be in the marketplace to see that in action and walking it out. And that muscle, man, that muscle got strengthened and strengthened. And I saw some miraculous things happen in my time in real estate. If you guys that don't know, real estate, that's my medium. And that's where God has blessed me to do a lot of marketplace ministry and see faith literally walked out.
You know how it's interesting, and we talked a little about this, like in church, we're taught that faith is almost blind. It's like you're just walking out hoping somehow that it's going to happen. But I love what you said. No, it's like, no, I'm walking out knowing the promises of God are true. Yes. And when I step out, I'm actually landing on that firm foundation. This is not just an abstract, the way we've kind of been taught about faith a little bit. It's a minor switch, but it's huge in the implications, right?
That's right.
Because now I'm stepping out knowing God is going to do what he said he was going to do. Right.
Absolutely. It's seeing it. It's seeing it. It's not just believing it, but see it. Like, how people say, I'll believe it when I see it. No. It's completely flipped upside on its head. No. I see it
first.
I see it, internally, and and then I'm going to go for it. Even though right now it's this, it's the substance of things hoped for. Even though I don't see it with my physical eyes, I see it. With my inner eye.
Now explain that for a minute, because you're prophetic, so you're coming from a perspective of being able to see, right? And there's some people who don't lean in that gifting, or people that might just be watching this podcast saying, "But I don't see it." So explain that.
Yeah, okay. So for instance, a lot of people that came to me, and I'll use real estate because that's what I've seen happen, and I've seen people come to me. They've never seen it, home ownership, let's put it that way, in their whole family. Mom, dad, whatever the case may be, have never seen a family member own a home. So they're coming to me in the hopes, and this is through faith, thinking that God, they believe God can do it, but ultimately they don't really know for sure, right? And so ultimately, the practical ways in which I get people to actually see it, not necessarily with their physical eyes, because you still don't see it yet, is going through the process. So they go through the process of, pre-approval. They go through the process of seeing their credit. Then they're like, oh, wow, like this is it's kind of building up, right? And they
Right.
see that my credit's really not that bad. I can actually do this. Okay, check. The money that I need to actually get into a home. Okay, check. There's programs that can actually help me get into it, so it's not as hard as I thought. Check. So anyways, the faith level kind of continues to rise, even though
And
they
it
don't
sounds like you're
necessarily see it.
gradually, tell me if I'm wrong,
Correct.
but are you gradually painting a picture for them of what's
Correct.
possible?
So let's bring
Right.
it back. So one of the things that God had asked me to do, and this is literally straight from the throne room of heaven. I had served 6 years at my church, and I did not tell a single soul, unless they saw me out, that I was an agent, because I didn't want to be that agent. Like, oh, you just because you go to church with me, you're going to use me as an agent.
Right.
God
Right.
strictly prohibited me from saying anything but to serve, to literally put my head down and serve the kingdom. And that's exactly what I did. It wasn't until my pastor at the time was out of a small home, but the pastor at the time, he was frustrated because I was finding him a home and doors were getting blocked. It was just crazy the way that things were going in the market. But he made a declaration prophetically. He said, this year, we're going to see miracles in home ownership. People are going to be having miracle stories. And for some reason, it just, my spirit kind of like woke up, and God's like, now is the time that something's going to be implemented so that practically people can walk this out and actually see it happen, because people kept believing, because they didn't have faith to believe that God could actually give them a home. It was nothing more than that. Like they did not believe that God could actually show up and show out in California, one of the hardest places in order for home ownership. And when he said that, something dropped in my spirit, and it literally was, I said, God, well, if the people are going, they don't have faith. Well, how can I practically as an agent, how can I help produce faith? And that's when Faith in Home Buying was born. I had told him, I said, I'm sitting down at 3:00 in the morning, and ideas are just coming on what God's speaking on. How can you make the faith arise in people in a practical way? And he said, go for it, do it. So I printed out some booklets, and it was real generic. It wasn't just me as an agent. I didn't want that. I didn't want the focus on me. I wanted the focus on faith and what God can do. So I printed out a material, and it had talking about stewardship. It was talking about tithing, giving, that we're stewards of the money that God gives us, right? It's all his anyway. Basically focusing your mind on what the reality of the word says is really what it is. Right. I had classes that I would go out and talk with people about. Sometimes it's one person, sometimes it's 40, other times it was probably a little bit more than that, but I didn't care. God's like, look, I want you to go out and by faith, for me, by faith, I want you to declare the miracles that I know I only did in your life, which at one point was very much it was a shame, lost homes, and by a miracle story of my own. He says, I want you to share your testimony so that you can help faith arise in other people, and use that testimony as a catapult to help people see from your testimony that God really is real, and absolutely he has the ability to do it. That's the beauty about our testimonies too.
Yeah,
it helps
exactly.
faith arise in other people, and they're not just hearing it, they're actually seeing it, and it helps to arise faith. So
now,
that's how it started.
Let's back up for a minute, because you hit on something crucial. So
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about other people and teaching them how to gain faith, but it started with you first being obedient to the download you got. And that's where a lot of us don't follow through, right? We get a vision, we think we're hearing from the Lord, but it's so big and unattainable. Because you could have said, God, okay, I got faith and I got the real, but I can't teach people to have faith in real estate. You chose the wrong person. I don't know if that's what I can do. I can sell houses, but I can't give people faith. And you could have just not even done that.
Right.
But you were willing to take a step in the vision that God had given you and just move forward, even if it just started with simple pamphlets. Or like you said, a manual that you created. And then from there, it just, as you begin to show people, God showed up and it just spiraled. But you took the first initial step of obedience to implement something that you could have never even done that.
You know what? It gets deeper than that. And this is for somebody, especially when God takes you through something in life, right? It gets deeper than that. Why does it get deeper? Because if I hadn't went through my own experience and had that revelation, I would have never been able to give it, right? So previous to that, husband and I, 20 2009, we lost both of our homes. And I was an agent at then, kind of a newer agent, like, 5 years, 6
We
years into
lost
the
our
business,
first home
right?
there
Like,
too.
lost in 2 short sales. Like, it
Mhm.
was dramatic. We just got married and now we're losing homes. My husband, he stewarded over his finances so well. So it was a blow to not only, ego and everything else, that now he had this 8-something credit score. And now it just, it hit. But the beauty about it is because we were good stewards, and this is so important for people to really catch, what God gives you, even though it might be small, even though it might be little, to be faithful with that little bit. If you are renting out a home for somebody, be faithful in how you steward that, because he's looking. And I say that with all sincerity, because it's the truth.
Yeah.
The Bible says, how if you're being faithful with a little, and that's a little bit of anything that he gives you, he can
Right.
give you much and he can expand on that, right? And give you more, right? But the cool thing about it is my husband's credit only got hit, from 2 short sales at that, maybe about 50 points, which is huge. And usually with 2 short sales, you got to wait 7 to 9 years. There is no way
Yeah,
that you
we
get
got
into
a foreclosure. We had to
you
wait 7 years. Yeah.
that's the whole point. And then 2 short sales, but guess what? That was the only ding, and we had to do it in order to go through the short sale process, right?
Yeah.
So believe me, we're feeling beat up, disgusted, lost our place, going into a rental home, had 2 babies at the time. He lost his job. I wasn't having any income coming in from real estate. It was a bad time. We were on it was the lowest of our relationship and lowest of really our lives, because we felt like we lost everything, right? But
Mhm.
God. But we didn't stop, pressing into God. We didn't curse God at all. We just say, you know what? Even more so, we're going to give and we're going to do. And faith in knowing that, you know what, Lord, you're going to make something out of this. And I would declare that, and I would say it like, God, something's going to happen from this. This is something that when we get past it, you're going to be able to, your light's going to shine on this. And I believe it wholeheartedly. Well, guess what ends up happening? By faith, 2 years into the process, I said, Scott, you know what? Just had this feeling that we need to go and try to go for a new construction. What? New construction? But we have to wait 78 years and this is on our, credit. I said, no, I'm feeling, again, I'm feeling that we need to do it. And guess what ends up happening? Right around my parents' house, there was a new construction. They were on their second to last phase. We go over there and I said, Lord, if in fact this is you, we'll have a lottery, because at the time, you had like 35 families and then your number had to be picked. The
Well, that's a
odds were,
miracle right there, right?
the odds were not in your favor. This is a crazy time, right? And so we go over there and, no, our number wasn't picked. And so you get to come the second time. Well, there was more people this time, like 40 families and stuff going for the last phase. And guess what? Our number gets pulled. And I'm like, oh my goodness. All right, here we go. You know what? I don't see it. I don't believe, but Lord, you opened this door. So no matter what, you said yes. And I not even believe it. I know that you're going to make this happen. But guess what? It wasn't easy. And this is for somebody. You got to keep going. When God tells you a yes, you keep going, no matter the obstacles, no matter the situation. If he said yes, he means yes. And that's faith. It's the ability knowing that I can't do it, but God, you said it. So you're going to do it no matter what it looks like. Right. And
Okay,
guess
before
what?
you move on to the rest of the story, I just want to back up so people get this.
Yeah.
You're approaching a lottery. Most people would be like, what's the point? The likelihood that my number is ever going to get pulled
100%.
and our credit's slightly messed up and we don't have the doubt.
Yep.
So why
There's
even
no
go? So
way.
push past that. Then your number doesn't get picked. And most people would have been like, okay, see,
Give up.
I told
It's
you
not meant.
it's not worth it. We did all this, blah, blah, blah. But yet, no, you stood past that. And this
Yes.
is what I want people to get.
Yes.
If God has spoken, you got to
Yep.
go grab it. But you got to stay consistent when Satan is throwing everything at you, the world's throwing it, to
Yep.
say, aha, see, God's not going to follow through. See.
Yep.
So
Yep.
many of us get off the track before we reap the reward of hanging in there to watch
Exactly.
this manifest as we grab it by faith. Okay, keep
Yep.
going. I just
Well,
want
see,
to point
it's
that
just
out.
like it's like when you wait on God. And some people get it all twisted. They think you just sit there and you wait on God.
Like it's
No,
going to
there's
magically manifest.
that's what I'm saying. There's a provoking God and saying, no,
Right.
faith without
No, you
works is
said
dead.
this, and I'm going to stay here till
And
my number gets picked.
100%,
Amen.
100%. And I'm going to
Right,
keep
right.
walking because I believe and I know that you're going to meet me on the end of what I'm doing. The doors that I'm going to go through, I'm going to keep walking because I know you said yes, right? It gets
Right.
even better, Heidi, because honestly,
Okay.
not only the builder's lender denied us, The builder's lender and 4 other lenders that the builder even suggested all straight flat out denied us. Why? Because of the short sales. But I said, God, you said, and guess what ends up happening? One of the in my office, one of the lenders, loan officers in my office, she takes the the file and they work with me. Do you understand? We ended up getting one of the biggest exceptions that I've ever seen, even in my own career. They saw everything. I laid out the picture and I said, you know what? These are the facts. The good thing I was a little bit organized because I told them everything. I said, we lost our jobs. They were supposed to do a modification. They didn't do it. And this is the reason why. Laid it out. They gave us an exception, and that exception ended up getting us approved for a loan, which was huge at the time. Having two short sales should have been 7 to 9 years.
And how many banks did you go through and did not give up?
Now we went to at least 5 banks. By the 5th one, it beat us up for sure. But it
like,
was
Lord, did we hear right? But no, you kept the course. You stayed
exactly.
the course.
You stayed the course, but we didn't have the money. so
now, okay. So wait a minute. You're approved now. Finally, this is what's hilarious. You go into this knowing you don't even have the down payment.
No, we didn't.
You probably are not qualified.
Yes,
but you had a picture.
Yes,
you had a picture. You painted a picture, and you're going to see it happen because we serve a God.
That's right.
Of the supernatural, guys. Let me just say this again. We serve a God that makes our crooked path straight. We serve a God of the supernatural, and we often don't tap in because we don't go for things that are supernaturally impossible.
Absolutely.
That require a miracle from heaven. So this is such a good story. So you go through all the banks, you haven't given up, and now it's like, okay, I'm approved, but I have to be honest, we don't even have the down payment.
We didn't have the money.
Man,
we didn't have. We had it because they were going to do an FHA deal, like it's like an extra $800 something on your thing. We were like, you know what, God, no, you add no sorrow to this, and we're going to believe that you're going to give us 20%. Now, mind you, please, I hadn't had a whole lot of deals going on. Husband was just barely kind of getting, into a job. I think he was working at the Hallmark. I mean, he had just gotten a job, so he's
that was a rough time.
Industry.
I remember that time. My husband,
so
we lost our house.
God, you're going to make this happen. You wouldn't you wouldn't take us this far to just leave us hanging, because we're believing and receiving and continuing to tithe, continuing to give, continuing to press, continuing to serve, and never giving up, right? I kid you not. Deals for me came out of the blue, people wanting homes and people, and so I go through the process and long story short, we end up the last month that we needed to get the money, the last month it comes through and we get actually more than what we needed for a 20% down payment. Didn't have it at all. But believed, and we told them, actually we forecasted, they said, okay, well, we can do it. We can give you approval for we were approved for that 3.5% down, but we said, no, put it for 20% because God's going to come through. No joke. And he did. And then some. Even in the process of these people coming in, I had to make it was even integrity was tested, because so many times people, again, they want to try to kind of do an Ishmael, right? They want to try to do something and play God's hand. And God's like, I didn't ask you to do that. I told you what's coming, but don't take it into your own hands because I'm not there to bless that, right? The situation came up. Kid you not, Heidi, it came up where it was really choosing between a client and them getting their dream home and me keeping shut that it was available because it was a sure deal that was about to close and me not telling them, or because I would have lost me losing the money because I needed it by a certain time. So we closed, it was right on time. And I said, Lord, this is not how you operate. This isn't how you operate. I'm going to stay on the up and up, and I'm still going to believe that you're going to make this thing happen. So absolutely, told them about the dream home. They come out of an offer that was already about to close. It was just 7 days. It was going to close. Went for their dream home, and guess what? It still came through as it needed to, and the integrity still was able to stay intact because I believed and I trusted that God you wouldn't throw this in here, and I wouldn't have to do anything that was deceitful or because you had no sorrow to your increase. So no, and still.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I think you brought up a good point. I mean, integrity is so important. In following God, right? Being honest.
Absolutely.
And I think we're in such a culture where we have gotten away with just the little things, the little
Yeah.
white lines. We're cutting corners just a
Yep.
little bit in our
Yep.
business or in the way we do things. And
Yep.
then we come into a situation like this where it requires full surrender and trust in the
Yep.
vision God has given you and never veering from the path. And then
Yep.
if you had taken it in your hands just a little
Just a
bit to
little
make it
bit.
happen, and then we say, well, God didn't come through. But it's like, no,
Yep.
I love the part about like it works with burdens too. Like God says, lay your burdens down, right?
Yep.
Let me carry them. If you're
Yep.
holding on just a little bit, I don't
Right.
care how small it is, he ultimately really can't take them and do what he wants to do because you're
Right.
still in the picture. It's the same
Right.
with this concept.
Right.
You're tweaking it just a little bit, thinking you're helping God. No, you're actually thwarting and stopping the process completely. It is so
Exactly.
important that if we say we're trusting God, I love
Mhm.
how, back up again,
Yep.
they gave you the 3.5% and you were like, no, we're going for the 20 because that's the kind of God I serve.
That's right.
You weren't even taking
100%.
the easy way. You were like, no, if
Yeah, it
God
was
gave
a
me all,
hard
we're
way.
going to do it. Right, right, right.
No, it was a hard way, but you know what? That's how big. You know how David, right? We had talked about something like this before, like, but you know how his battles, right? The
Right.
battles leading up to the big battle, right? Had other things not have happened in our life that we had to trust on the smaller
Right.
parts, even to get the home, or my marriage, my life, what God did, even in saving me. You know what I'm saying? If I knew that God could do these things in my life, I know in his ability because I've already experienced his ability. And versus
Right.
me experiencing it, it helped the situation because even with husband, where he was just like, well, I said, no, but I know that he can. And husband's like, you know what? All right, I'm rolling with it. Let's let's
Yes.
do it. But had I not seen God come through and him not be those very things for me, and me taking the chance on that, I probably it would have been really hard to try to have it for ourselves, our family, and then, for other people, even at
Right.
that.
Right.
Because a
For
lot of
sure.
times, most people, they still come in unbelieving, but I'm having the faith to believe, especially if we're doing this by the eyes of God and you're coming
Right.
from, my church, then there's different eyes that we got to look in with this. Number one, this is by faith. So the rules don't apply on the natural that it does with
Right.
us because we serve a supernatural God.
So let's touch on 2 points now. One, this idea that it doesn't just drop out of
Yep.
heaven when you're waiting for something to manifest. You
Correct.
had the vision, but you weren't sitting idly saying, okay,
Correct.
God, where is it?
Yep.
You were preparing yourself. So what does that look like when a person says, well, then I'm working for it? What do you mean? Like I actually have to make it happen.
Yep.
What does it mean to prepare yourself for what's coming? And how can you take practical steps? And it doesn't actually mean that you're making it happen. So tell me about it.
Exactly. And it's not like you're performing
Because
on
you
in
couldn't have magically made that money
no,
appear. You didn't know what God
no.
was going to
I
do, but
had
you
to
were
take
making steps.
100%. I had
Right,
it's when you wait on something, I think that the process of waiting, right? If you think about the concept of a waiter, what does a waiter do when you wait on God? You're actively like, Lord, I'm
serving.
I'm 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 I'm, I'm actively doing things in order
Right,
to saying, Lord, you're saying yes, go here, go left, go right. How do you think divine appointments happen? If you don't
right,
go out and what, if you're just sitting inside your room, not making things happen, how is he going to move? Right?
right,
In essence, when it's actively waiting, when the Bible talks about faith without works is dead, show me your faith, I'll show you my works. Basically, they work together. So you can't just sit back and be like, okay, God, you're gonna fall, my healing is gonna come. Ultimately, what ends up happening? You go up and you say, like, for instance, walking, right?
You
I've seen
dance
this
in
happen.
the pain, and then the healing comes.
I've seen this
Amen.
happen before. Like someone's
Mhm.
like a leg injury and God's healing, right? They say, get up and walk. What Jesus told the
The
cripple,
man, yep,
man, get up and walk. Don't just sit there and be like, okay, I think I'm healed. No, walk so that the healing can actually take its place and that you could see that I'm here and I'm the miracle maker, right?
right,
It's that very thing. I'm going to believe and go out as if God has already done it. I'm going to go out as if I have, a bunch of clients and God's going to give me a building, right?
right,
I'm going as if, I'm preaching to people as if God's going to fill the stadiums. It's that type of mentality that you go out and you have versus being, well, I'm going to sit back. I'm just going to wait for God to do whatever he needs to do. Maybe he'll give me a dream or maybe someone will call me. Maybe. But then
right.
again, it's taking risks sometimes and say, you know what, Lord, if we didn't take the risk in going back to like over here in from California to over here, If we would have just sat back and God said, okay, go. Well, Lord, well, you didn't, it doesn't look good over there. I don't know about that one. And then stayed stagnant, we would have never made it over here. And God would have
Right.
not done the major things that he's done, even in our life and business and stuff, how we had sat and waited, right?
We're often sitting back waiting for the perfect situation, the
The
perfect job.
perfect
Like you said,
situation.
we were looking at those houses and there's all these lotteries and it wasn't the perfect situation, but it's
Nope.
like, no, sometimes it's just, no, I'm going to start here and I'm going to keep trusting and moving. I can't,
Right.
it's never going to be, and we talked about this too. It's like, you're never going to be qualified for what you're being called to. And the
Correct.
situation isn't going to seem qualified, but that doesn't mean it's not God. We
Right.
still got to press forward. We still
You
got
got
to
to press
push
forward.
forward on what we believe.
And
I
you would
also been
be
thinking about this.
uncomfortable. But Heidi,
Yeah.
it's actually too, it's being willing to be uncomfortable, because a lot of times, truth be told, a lot of times that uncomfortability or that fear of wanting to go and do it, that's actually the very thing you need to tackle and go forward.
This is
And go
where
and push
I think
against.
a lot of us step back on our faith when we're
Yes.
trusting God and it gets to that uncomfortable place.
Yep.
Did I really hear correctly? Is God really
Yep.
going to come through? You start doubting.
Exactly.
And
you start
then
doubting.
you start solving things that he should be solving for you. And now you're back in control.
Yep.
And you've gotten off the path of just staying forward. And then it doesn't happen. You're like, see,
Yep.
because
Yep.
you didn't wait, you weren't patient, you didn't stick the course, you didn't
Yep.
stay on that thought. Nope,
Yep.
I'm showing up as if this is going to happen. And we need to talk about the daily battle. I mean,
Yep.
I'm getting better, but I was at the point where like I'd have to wake up in the morning and like prophesy over myself just to
Of
get my
course.
head in that space.
Yep.
That no, I'm not that person anymore. No, this is where I'm going. No, because for some people, the
Mhm.
battle here is so hard to believe.
Exactly.
To
Exactly.
believe that we serve a God it's possible.
Yep.
Man, we serve such a lukewarm God in our culture. It's
Mhm.
just unbelievable that we even
Mhm.
go for anything. I also was thinking about this concept that sometimes we've been given a really big vision, right?
Yep. Yep.
But the thought of producing that vision is huge and overwhelming. But the reality is, we don't often do it alone, right?
Right.
We have to do our part.
Yes.
So say my part is to cast a vision. It is not
Yep.
necessarily my part to create the whole thing. I
Right.
need other believers to come beside me. But if I
Absolutely.
don't do my part
Correct.
because I'm overwhelmed by the bigger picture,
Correct.
then it never comes into
It never
fruition.
comes to,
So
exactly,
I
because
was
we're a
just thinking
body.
right. There's like, for instance, you doing this, which
Mhm.
then set you up to be able to help other couples walk the
Yes.
same course.
Correct.
If you hadn't done it for yourself, you would have never been in position to help others.
Correct.
And I was listening
100%.
to another guy's testimony the other day. It was a similar thing. Like he ran into a woman who was able to help him. And I was thinking to myself, man, she was in position to do
Yep.
her part.
Exactly.
And if she hadn't showed up and been obedient to God to do her part, he
Yep.
would have never gotten into the Navy and did his part. And so,
Exactly.
guys, it's so important that we show up today, meaning
Yep.
our part is always today.
Yep.
What is God calling you to do in that little step today? We all
Right.
play a part. We don't operate alone. It's not that we're going to like, and like you said, you're playing your part. And then the woman in your office happens to be the one that has the link to the money.
Mhm.
But you were playing your part. She was playing her part and you linked up.
Exactly.
What people don't realize is, guys, when we're not obedient to the Lord, we're not the link in the chain for somebody's part.
That's
Do you
right.
know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
like, not only are you not helping yourself, you're also not able to help others. You've put a hole in the link because you're not being obedient to your part. Your part is important. And
Exactly.
it's not just always for us. It is
Correct.
important that we're obedient for others because we are the link in everybody's chain. I mean, the Bible
Right.
in Corinthians talk about this idea that we're the body and we all play
Right.
a part.
That's right.
But so many of us are not playing our part in the link in the chain. There's
Right.
so many gaps.
Well, that's
You know,
why
when
it's so
people need
important
help.
to, but see, this is why, like I said, it's important to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because a lot of the things that the devil does try to do is to sit here and say, well, no, you can't do that. You can't do that because, well, you're not good at this. You're not. And if that was the case, there was a lot of things I wouldn't do, public speaking, or I wouldn't speak to people, or I wouldn't put myself out there. I wouldn't be transparent about certain things. I wouldn't take a risk on something,
Right.
because I know that in the back of that, if not even if, but when God shows up, this is going to be a testimony and he's going to get all the glory. That's the biggest part, though.
Right.
I would have never, in doing this, I know, God, you're going to get the glory, because that's the big part, right? If I'm doing it for myself, and for my own self-glory and stuff, God's going to look at it like, yeah, okay, well then, yeah, keep doing it for your self. But if I know that I did something, especially if it was out of my comfort zone, and especially if it's something that was outside of my wheelhouse of doing, that's faith. I know that God's going to come through. And know what? When he does, I'm going to absolutely give him all the glory, honor, and praise. And it's exactly what I did in my business. It got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm good, but I am not that good. These things that are happening are supernatural. Like, I am not going to sit here and take the credit for these things. And I'm absolutely hook or crook. I don't care what you say. One of the things you don't talk about in real estate is religion and politics. Those are the things that you don't talk about, right? But I said, I don't care. God, this is your business. I don't care. I'm going to call a miracle what a miracle is. And guess what? If you had a problem with it, so be it. You sure didn't tell me, because you sure came. It didn't matter whether you're a Christian or not. I don't serve just Christians. I serve people that want to see results. And if my results happen to be because I trust in God, then so be it. We're going to get results. In this market, this crazy market, like in COVID, there's no, it's not, it doesn't make sense that from, my pastor's was Vive Church over in, 10 locations, but over in Palo Alto, right? All of the executive staff, I'm talking about all of the pastors, there are now, all of them have homes. All of them have homes. Maybe one right now, but this is over, these are multiple in different states and such. And all of them have went through a faith and home buying course, heard the story, the testimony, and faith arose, and they knew that they could do it. So much so that even the people in the churches, like, there's so many homeowners right now in that, community. It's just mind blowing. And every story has a God factor to it. I said, Laura, I don't want to do this thing. I want to have God stories. I want to have stories that will continue to increase people's thought and belief in the marketplace about how you move and how you operate. Because it's huge and it's so real. It's tangible. It's real. It's substance to it. It's real.
So let's touch on two more things real quick. And one of them is a little off topic, so we don't need to go terribly into it, but I want to talk about it for a second because it came up. How important is it that the believers are active in the marketplace? Because I think this is where we have sort of not done such a great job. Like, we know we're supposed to do outreach. We know we're supposed to reach our neighbors, blah, blah, blah. But really being bold in business and in the marketplace and bringing miracles to the marketplace. Talk about that just briefly, since it's a kind of off topic, but I think it's important.
Oh, no, that's still on topic. Honestly, to have the faith to believe, because most would say that's why you don't talk about religion and you don't talk about politics, especially in, the public eye, right? Because you can, and I've heard this many a times where, you're going to pigeonhole yourself, you're going to pigeonhole your career, whatever, right? And to honestly believe, to have the faith to know that, God, you are so much bigger than, you're so much bigger. Yeah. And I believe that you're so much bigger. And in the marketplace, to be able to stand for something versus having it, being able to declare that God is able in situations versus having it saying, well, I did this, I did that, the whole I factor, because that's what my business and that's what my industry is. Oh, I did it. I'm the best. I did this. I did that. You know what? It takes so counterculture to be like, you know what? Like I said, I'm good, but I'm not that good. God put his hand on it and he pushed that thing forward, and I'm going to call it what it is, period. And if you don't like it, sorry, but you can't, but the people that have the stories here, don't take my word from it. And it's beautiful to see the people talk. That's why I wanted to do that. I wanted people to talk about their stories. Don't take it from me. I'm just sitting here being a conduit of these things, and I'm seeing it happen right in front of my eyes. But these stories are too good to pass up. So people would start to share their story. It's so important, like in your industries, especially if you're in a service industry like mine, like people sharing their stories, faith arising, people calling from out of the blue saying, I believe that God can do this, and I want to see it happen. That's testimony. That sparked something inside of me. It made something happen inside of me that I'm going to actually go and get this thing done, and I'm going to go through the pre-approval process, and I want my own miracle. And that's what people started to do. And it was amazing to see. And no, did it happen in hundreds and millions and stuff? No, but it was amazing to see that every family had their own story. And if someone can have the faith to believe in Silicon Valley, which I was at, from California, one of the hardest places and most expensive places to buy a home, in the salaries that people have, these weren't people that had a whole bunch of money. No, not at all. But think it. Someone had this faith to believe that they can buy a house, right? And live in it and not just be house, poor, kind of thing, but paycheck to paycheck, but really have an abundance, right? Think about this. Think about what else they can believe for.
Right.
Think about what else they can believe for.
And not
Maybe
only that,
healing.
you're
Maybe their
introducing
marriage. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Amen. Their children. Yes.
Children.
And you're not just introducing them to God, you're introducing them to a supernatural, miracle working God from the get.
Absolutely.
Talk about want to know who God really is before you even walk down. That's like the best way to introduce people to God, man. He's real.
Right. 100%.
This is what my God does. This is who he is.
100%.
Right?
But it's taking the marketplace. It's saying, you know what? We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Like when we talk about things, when we share the goodness of God, in that very thing, whether you believe or you don't, these stories are so provoking that you have no other choice but to kind of scratch head. Like that obviously didn't make sense. I'm talking about
sense on paper. Yeah,
look, I am talking about like people knocking on someone's door and giving them $20,000 because God told them to. And the people, they didn't ask for it. Another person knocked the same day, and gave another $20,000 check. And so the people, the whole story, I don't think we have time to go into the whole story. Maybe we have a part 2 where I can actually talk about some of the stories, but I'm talking about that type of faith.
No, we're going to have you on again for sure.
No, man, I'm talking about like, these are bona fide, should be made for movie stories. That God showed up and showed out.
Yeah, God is so good. So we've already talked for 35 minutes, if you can believe that almost. Yay. So the podcast always just gets going. But one more thing, you took a huge leap of faith to come down and be part of Saints and Soldiers, which I'm so glad you're here. I was here about maybe a year and a half prior to you in my own journey. And you came down and talk a little bit about, because God doesn't just, we often get over a major hurdle face and we're like, we're good, we're settled. Nope, God's calling you deeper. Now you got the house, you're settled again. And God says, no, pick up and move all the way. So tell me a little bit about that.
That was huge, Heidi, because, a lot of times you think that, okay, Lord, we spent a decade of building a church family and love them to death, spent like literally 10 years plus building the house of God, where they're now like 11 plus, campuses all over the world. And that was huge. And we call ourselves kingdom builders, my husband and I, and really, really mean that God has called us to build kingdom, right? Kingdom initiatives. And so people can see Jesus in such a reality and maybe a different way that they ever have before in the marketplace. Right. So when God gave the mandate to us to say, he said, go. And we were like, go where? Like, no, we're here. We're comfortable.
We're good, God. We're good.
We're going nowhere. Because that was never a thought. But when it started to go, and then husband and I, and we're both on the same, we're like, oh Lord, here we go. All right, where we're going, God, because we weren't thinking about it before. We were comfortable, we were good. But God's like, no, I need you to build somewhere else. And we were like, okay, well, where's that somewhere else? Texas kept coming up on the map. And so we explored it again, act of faith. We said, okay, well, you know what? Let's take a trip to Texas and let's see. So this wasn't over here in Tyler. It was over in College Station. So we took a trip over there, kind of felt it out and just felt like, maybe so. Maybe this is it. Texas, we're kind of feeling it, right? And then come back and then something ended up happening that we didn't go through. Just like, well, God, you said go. But then all of a sudden, Pastor Jabbar over here was ready to, I guess, sell lots, or things were opening with Trinity Creek over here. And then we were like, you know what? Let's try and check it out. Let's go down. We haven't seen them in a while. Knew Pastor Jabbar and Janelle for a long time and, kind of lost touch, but kind of, not really, but kind of was best friends with his sister. And so we went over to Tyler and visited, and just God said, yes, I want you to build. But we were still like, build what?
And be honest, Tyler is not, I laugh about this too. Like,
my business is over in California. What do you mean? Like,
right. So, and Tyler is not a huge city. It's not Dallas.
No.
I'm from Philly, near New York. Like, I grew up very different. I come down here and I'm laughing because, at least East Texas is green and it's somewhat beautiful. There's lakes. So it reminds me of Pennsylvania a little bit. So thank you, Lord. But it's not my first choice, definitely. But it's where God wanted me at the time. So talk a little bit about that. It was not necessarily
But see, well, what came from that, because obviously it had to have been God. But the hard part was like, okay, business. So guess what? God sometimes does things to shake you up, because by faith, if you say yes, what does that look like? It allowed me. I had to push myself out of my
Right.
comfort zone in my business. So therefore, I
Mm-hmm.
started my own. I founded my own real estate company. I had to switch brokerages that I helped found. I was 10
Right.
years in helping to found. I was one of the founding realtors and one of my other brokerages. That was hard. But God
Yeah.
said, go. And I said, okay, well, you're going to have to take care of my business. I need people to man my business in California as I sit here and I do things over in Texas and expand my business. He brought an amazing individual to help as far as my teammate over in California. And I said, okay, Lord, you know what? I already know
No
in your
excuses.
ability. So why am I sitting here doubting you? Let me just
Yes.
continue to go. The house that we were we were going to have another house over here. He brought people to literally have our house for like long-term lease over in California. We didn't even need to search for anybody. Again, that's
Right.
how you know when the pieces kept falling into places. Like, I got you. I add no sorrow to this thing. I will give you increase. And
Right.
coming over here, now, mind you, please come over here. That was a whole lot. Again, we talk about obstacles. You move by faith, and everything that you see in your eyes is just not adding, things just happening, stuff not getting done, and this
Okay,
the whole
that's
building
important though,
process.
guys. That's important. We talk a little bit a lot. We talked a lot about me and Janelle in the first
That.
episode. Talked about this idea that we have to base ourselves on truth and not facts, because
Right.
if you're looking in the natural to
Nah.
try to as a gauge, right,
Yeah.
to see
Yep.
that you were obedient, you were
Yeah.
stepped out correctly, you heard
Yeah.
correctly, you're gonna
Yep.
misinterpret that every single time.
Yep.
Because
Could have
remember, we live in
easily
a
went back.
fallen world where Satan and we're up against darkness. It's going to throw
Yep.
everything at us,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
But we're the type of people, we serve a God that requires us to stay the course to reap the
Correct.
benefits.
Correct.
So, guys, I really want to hone into this. I was taught this too. I was taught in church this idea that, like, if I'm obedient and doing the right thing, then it should show immediately.
Nothing bad will happen.
Right, like all the fruit. Okay, where's the fruit? Like, you obey God, but look, you're here and it didn't work out. So, you must have not heard. No, no,
Yeah.
no. That's an inaccurate interpretation of what's going
Right.
on.
Right.
And so that's really important, guys, because in obedience to God and following God in faith, you must have spiritual eyes.
Correct.
You must keep your eyes on the picture. Remember what he told you and stay faithful to what he told you, regardless of what's going on in the natural.
Right. Look, we came here, the story. Like, we weren't
Yeah.
even to move into the house until 7-8 months. And the money that was spent on, I mean, there was a lot. The house and
Hotels, Airbnbs, back and forth.
hotels,
It was a mess.
Airbnbs,
Right.
and believe me, at some point we were like, all right, we know we're getting
And I'm
broke
sure you
right
had
now.
friends that were like, "You really heard from God on that?
You
This
really
is a
heard
mess."
from God? Oh, you already know that's
Yes,
just
everybody's doubting.
everyone always say that. Are you sure you heard from you heard from God? I'm like, no,
Mhm.
we did. But see, that's the thing. Again, the ability of God. Like, look, okay, I believe that He was. No. I know my God, and I know that He wouldn't leave me nor forsake me, and I know that we heard clearly. And that's the hard part too, right?
Right.
You walking by faith, and you heard clearly. Of course, Satan's going to be like, well, did you really hear that? Look,
Yeah.
all this stuff is happening. Do you really believe that? And
Right.
it's like, you know what? I don't believe in my ability, because with me and man, they're going to fail me. But what I know that my God can do, I've seen Him do it, and I've seen Him do it miraculous. So you know what? In my mind, I'm like, all right, Lord, this test in home ownership, because remember, the other story was great. The other story was
Mhm.
grand. I'm like, that was a testimony. I said, you know what, devil, you can throw anything that you want to. You know why? I'm going to still give Him all the glory. And this is going to be an even more fantastic story about the goodness of God and the
Yeah.
faith of God, and Him coming through in clutch in situations that were even dire than the first one.
Right.
So you know what? Bring it on, because I know that I'm going to give God the glory, and I know that He's going to get the glory. People are going to get saved, set free, delivered, whatever the case may be, by this testimony coming forth, for sure.
Right.
And it's still happening. Not even that, business expanding, making that step, business expanding, and other businesses, and helping other businesses come and just and breathing life into certain things in businesses. That's coming forth, because it's the anointing. And that's how you know, when you're looking at it in the spiritual, like, nah, there's something breaking, there's something going forth. There's more ministry, different things in ministry happening. My marriage strengthening. So spiritually, physically, it kind of looks kind of, but
God was
spiritually
doing
in
something.
their eye, you're like, no, I know you're doing a work, and I
Mhm.
see you moving, and that's what I can hang on to.
Yeah, amen.
It's
And
being
aren't we so
sensitive to
blessed,
that,
faithful soldiers, that people who are watching, we got Tamika in our group. I'm so blessed that they came down here. I mean, I know without a doubt too that I was supposed to be here. I might have came down. I mean, I remember when I saw my apartment, I ain't going front. I was like, I said, you did what? You got this sight unseen? I was like, what?
Yep,
I have never, but you know what? God used all of it. And
yep,
now I'm contently there. I could care less. It is
yep,
exactly what I needed. And
yep,
God knew. And God is
yep.
good when we're obedient, man.
Yeah, 100%. But see, that's what kingdom building is. That's what the body of Christ is, right? It's, no, some people are called to that. But again, when it's apostolic, for instance, just like Pastor, Jabbar and Janelle, like when it's apostolic and you connect with that, where you're going to go, you're going to break ground. And I knew that was part of our lives. We've done a lot of things like, ministries and startups and stuff. And so we knew that it was going to be some work and coming
Mhm.
here, and we prepared in order to do that. But
Yeah.
again, you have to know that you're called. You have to know that God it went with you. Because if you don't believe
Right.
that, then you're going to sit here and you're going to waver back and forth. And being unstable, being double-minded, you're never going to get anything anyway. Right.
And
So you have
that's
no firm foundation that this is where
mhm.
God has called me, no matter what it looks like.
And let's close on this. I think that too, I just was thinking like a lot of us want to get to our next season. We want to
Yeah.
grow in certain areas, right?
Mhm.
When God is taking you through some really tough trials, challenging you to make
Yeah.
huge leaps like you did from faith,
Yeah.
you have to realize the faith muscle that you gain by being obedient, plus the release of control that
Yeah.
you learn to let go of external realities. And I
Yep.
think the problem is we want this in theory. We want to be so free that if we lose our house, if things don't go our
Mhm.
way, we know
Mm.
we serve such a great God that he's going to come through. But you don't learn that until you go through that again
Yeah.
and again. And then you begin to, oh, I can't trust God with everything. I've been here before. I know what
Exactly.
this looks like.
Right.
This is just external. God's doing something. I'm more than willing to step out because I know the kind of God I serve. But we're not willing to make that initial leap. And I just want to encourage those who are watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that's where it starts.
That's right.
Not only is it not going to just magically manifest, but all the lessons you learn, the blessings, the new season you walk into also doesn't come when we don't step out in faith. And so
Absolutely.
they all are working together, and and it's important. So
Right.
this was a great discussion. I knew
Yeah,
having
no.
you on this topic was going to be really good. And watch part one, guys, because we really didn't even talk more
Yep.
about, because faith being the currency of heaven, there is so much we tap into when it comes to what Christ offers us for real, guys. We just happen to be talking about housing and real estate and stuff, but yeah, we're gonna have Tamika on again. She's just got so much there that she
Yeah,
could
no,
share.
like we just talked about real estate. Heidi, I mean,
We haven't even gotten into your personal
no,
testimony or just
we
so
haven't
much
even
stuff.
talked about, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like what happens again, the build up to
Right,
things just happen to be in the marketplace. But again, when you start to see it and you welcome these things, Paul, he welcomed the opposition because he knew that he had a chance to grow in it.
right,
And so it's not like I say,
right,
okay, Gordon, just give me everything, give me all the opposition. But no, you have a chance to grow. And then you can be transparent in the very things that you're going through because it's
right.
not easy. This
I'm
didn't.
starting I'm starting to learn to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Also
When you know
knowing
you're
I'm starting
uncomfortable,
to
then you know
tap
there's
in,
growth.
oh, something's happening and this
Something's
is okay.
happening. I'm growing, but we
God is
always
either
want to
stripping
stop.
me of something
Yes.
or he's pushing me
Yes.
further. And it's
Yes.
also really helped me to know when to tap into my soul
That's right.
and let go of the
And
natural.
let
And
go.
and
Yep.
yeah, it's been good. It's been good. I mean,
So
it was
no,
hard at
I
first. I'm not gonna lie. It's just been the toughest walk I have ever walked down here. Um,
absolutely, especially
but
coming
it
out here
has,
when you're doing. I've learned this about myself too. Like when it's something that I don't want to do or something I'm scared of, then I'll try everything that I possibly can not to do it. But when I finally have to do it and I settle myself and I do it, then I'm like, oh, that wasn't that bad. And you know what? Actually, this is the one thing that was hindering X, Y, and Z from happening in my life, for me getting to the next phases
right.
of what God has for me, right? Because I trust in his ability, not in what I can do anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, go for it. Those that are listening, like, look, go for it. Walk that thing out, and you'd be so surprised what God has given you. Hold on to it. Continue to go for it. Be fervent with your prayers. Be fervent with how you're walking things out, because it will come to pass. It won't, even though it tarries,
Right.
it will come to pass. Write everything out. Make it plain so that what God is giving you, you can run when you read it and when you see it. It's just amazing to see when you take the steps and you know that God is going to come through.
An analogy came to mind. I love to use pictures and
Yep.
analogies. It's just the way I like, but I was thinking about the Israelites standing on the edge of the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Let's just take a minute to think about what must have been going through their head, right? You're
Yeah.
facing a body of water. You don't know God's going to split it yet.
Yep.
You're standing there. He hasn't split it, so you're slowed down, and you can hear your enemies. They're coming, and they're getting closer. And you're like, oh, man, is God going to require me to swim? Like, I don't know how to swim. What about my baby in my arms? Like, all these things that must be crossing their mind, right?
Yep.
But God was allowing their enemy to catch up for a reason, right?
That's right.
And then suddenly the sea parts.
Yep.
They walked through on dry land, which wasn't complicated. They had been walking. Then they caught up just to the point where the water would be crushed on their enemies. They allowed the enemies to get right where they needed to be.
Right.
And then wasn't it as hard as they thought it was?
Correct.
No, they thought they were going to drown. They thought they had to swim.
All types of things.
They thought the enemy was going to catch up. Now they're going to die in the desert. I mean, like all these things that go through our head when we're facing the body of water, right? We're facing the impossible, whatever that water is for you.
Hey, but think about it though. Like, pause real quick. Think about it. When the body of water is up, imagine what you're seeing. You're seeing the sharks.
I know. Is it going to crash on me when I walk? Like,
no, you're seeing all types of things in this water. Look, this is not like clear water here. We're you're seeing stuff. And
it's
think
amazing,
about how high.
right? And you're right, because you said it's never what I thought it was when I finally obeyed. And I'm just like, we make it so much more complicated, guys. And we blame God when our walk has been so crooked, but we don't want to admit that when we really are honest, we go back. There are so many times we did not stay the course. We disobeyed here. We disobeyed here. We had to get back on the track. And then we blame God for this crooked path. Guys, when you rest, and I'm learning, like, because I've been reading Isaiah a lot, right? And talks about the Israelites and everything. Sabbath rest is offered to us not just on Sunday. It's a state of mind when you learn to rest. Right. And what's crazy is God's way is always crazy in the natural. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It looks crazy in the natural, but there's a purpose for that. Because if it was easy, if it looked like you could do it, you would not be a witness to the world of the 100%. Supernatural power of God.
100%.
So
that's what it's about.
Just obey. I'm telling you, I'm almost 50 years old, right? And I have made so many mistakes in my life by not obeying.
Yep.
And I can tell you right now, it is easier to obey. Anybody else watching? Do it the hard way the first time instead of doing it the hard way 1,000 times and then picking up all the shattered pieces. Because you're going to have to go back and do it the right way. There are no shortcuts in life.
There's no shortcuts to this thing.
And there's no shortcuts to faith.
Yep.
So many of us shortcut our faith, and then we say, well, where's God? Or I'm not where I should be in my marriage or my walk or my church, and I'm dry. It's like, because you're shortcutting your faith because you're not being obedient to cross every T, dot every I. It's important.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
And what God's calling you forth to is going to look crazy, and it's going to be scary, and you're going to be standing on the edge of the water sometime wondering,
oh my God,
is he asking me to jump?
I can't do this. I can't do this. And God's like, I know you can't, but I
jump
can.
in this river? Like, what is he asking us to do? You know what I'm saying? God shows up when we stand on the edge of the river and we remind him who he is. He moves. God, you brought me to the edge of this river. I can't swim. I'm scared to jump. What do you want me to do? Boom, he parts the water.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
I say it's one of the best adventures you can ever partake in. Honestly, to live a life like that. Some would call it reckless. Others would call it just, again, living by faith. It's the biggest, most amazing adventure. And when you are able to have the stories that God has done in your life, and you're able to share it with people that may not have went through it or may not even have faith, like, honestly, to me, that's where the rush is. The rush is saying, like, no, Jesus, let me tell you a story.
Right.
And you don't have to take my word for it. Like, this is the experience. This is what his word says. This is exactly what happened. And I love that. I love that for those that take God at his word and say, you know what? No, Lord, I'm going to walk by faith. And you know what? You're going to show up and you're going to show out. It's the most
Yes.
beautiful thing to see. Someone's come through because they heard a testimony about God's goodness. So,
Yes,
yeah,
God is so faithful, God. He shows up. We
absolutely.
serve a kind of God and he has never changed. He's
Yep,
faithful today,
absolutely.
yesterday, and
Yep.
tomorrow. You
Yes, he
can
is.
bank on it, guys. You can bank on it.
Yep.
This has been
Amen.
such a rich discussion. So, so good, guys. So good. I wake up every day now, like, okay, it's an adventure. What you got for
Yep.
me today?
Absolutely.
You just learn to let go, and
Yeah.
it's really good. So, all right, guys, we're gonna get Tamika on again. I promise you. Thank you for
Thank you
participating
again.
in another episode of Ascension Podcast. We have such a good time here, guys. And
Bye,
so,
y'all.
yes, yes. Okay, so we'll see you again on Ascension Podcast. We're gonna say bye for now, guys. We'll see you
Bye,
later.
Ascension Podcast.
All right, guys, that's Heidi here at Ascension Podcast. Thanks for checking in. What a great episode, right? This is part 2 of Faith is the Currency of Heaven. Please go make sure you see the episode that Janelle and I did called Faith is the Currency of Heaven. It's part 1. It was a great discussion, right? So many rich nuggets. Feel free to interact and engage us in the comment section. We would love to hear from you. Give us ideas for the podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. This really helps us get this information out there. Thanks again for tuning in to the Ascension Podcast. This is Heidi here, and I'll see you on the next episode.